Hi everybody, and welcome to Mrs. Johnson's 4th grade science class. This is my 4th inquiry lesson video, and the lesson I chose is from Picture Perfect Science Lessons, grades 3 through 6, Chapter 25, If I Built a Car, right here. The lesson is geared towards 4th through 6th grade. I felt this lesson does not fit directly with the 4th grade science standards for physical science, life science, or earth systems, but it does fit with the 21st century learner expectations such as critical thinking and reasoning. Science requires students to analyze evidence and draw conclusions based on that evidence. Scientific investigation involves defining problems and designing studies to test hypotheses related to those problems. So that's the connection I chose to use. The materials needed for this multi-day lesson are Foamy's race car bucket. However, I used Legos. I'll begin the lesson with the engaged portion. Before reading this story, If I Built a Car, I would share a little information about the author, Chris Van Dusen. When he was a little boy, Chris Van Dusen's parents would pile all 5 of their kids into the car and drive 3 hours to Grandma's house. This was before Game Boys, iPads, and DVD players. So the 5 brothers would pass the time playing games like, "What would you change on this car?" That is what inspired him to write this book. Now, this story is near and dear to my heart because I have 5 sons, and I can't tell you how many miles we have traveled over the years to visit relatives. Oftentimes, we try to make up games to entertain the boys so we can minimize the screen time. Books and crayons are a good distraction, but so is designing new features on the car. At this point, I would open the front cover and share the designs that Jack drew. Jack is the main character in the book, and these are his drawings if he were to build a car. Then I would ask, have you ever sketched designs of a car, house, clothes, or anything else? After posing this question, I will read the story If I Built a Car. I'll work through the night to create a design, constantly analyze, tweak, and refine. I'll study jet rockets and look at old planes, contemplate buses and zeppelins and trains. To make it as smooth and as sleek as an eel, I'll borrow ideas from the Wienermobile. So sit back, relax, stay right where you are. It's time to reveal my spectacular car. And this is just having Jack begin his story. After reading the book, I would ask the students what their dream car would look like. What special features would it have? Next comes explore. I will explain that all cars begin with a drawing. The next step is explain. I would tell students that in the real world, cars are designed by engineers and other design professionals using a step-by-step process. Then I would ask, do you know anyone who is an engineer? What kinds of things do you think engineers do? Turn and talk to your partner. At this point, I'll have the students participate in pairs read to find out what engineers do. Each student will take turns reading aloud from What Do Engineers Do? While one partner reads, the other should listen and make comments and ask questions. What Do Engineers Do is in the book. It's in the back of the book. The many questions on page 37. What are the steps of the design process? What kind of engineer would design a car? What kind of engineer would design a new type of headlight for the car? And it just kind of goes through and asks about the different types of engineers. Then I would tell the students in the early 1900s, cars were built one at a time and almost entirely by hand. How long do you think it took to build a car that way? As long as a year? In many cases, to build one car. Then I would explain that modern car companies can produce millions of nearly identical cars every year. This is known as mass production. At this point, I'll hand out the Foamy's Car Corporation letter, which is also in the back of the book, and explain we're going to have a race to see which team can mass produce 16 cars the fastest. The criteria and the guidelines are all in the letter, and that's all in the back of the book. I do not have Foamy's race cars. However, I did have my boys create different Lego cars. These are some of their designs. These were made from Lego designs. I mean, these are not original designs, but my boys also like to make their own unique designs. So they come up with different things. In the classroom, I would have the Foamy's cars. Anyway, after that, we would discuss how the students who built the cars the fastest did it. At one point, I'm sure some of them would separate everything so that they could do an assembly line. However, I wouldn't suggest that until the next part where we discuss elaborate. And elaborate is where the assembly line design comes in, and then you determine the importance of the different designs and who can build the fastest. All of this information is in the back of the book. Communicating the design process, part 2. After elaborate, you move on to evaluate, and basically that's where communicating the design process and the little car that changed the world comes in. Have each student answer the design process questions on the communicating the design process and the little car that changed the world student pages. That is chapter 25. If I built a car, it's fairly complex. It will take many class sessions, but it is a ton of fun, and I know just the little bits and pieces that I did with my boys where they created the Lego cars was very engaging. So I'm sure students would be very engaged with this lesson. And that's the end.